I really enjoyed the last panel. I think what we're trying to do in the conference today is get a sense of what's really going to happen. I spent a lot of time trying to think about what's different. And it's worth actually saying right up front that I believe that the internet is by far the most disruptive technology that we will have seen in history, and even more disruptive, for example, than electricity and so forth. And the fundamental reason is because it has replaced the economics of scarcity with the economics of abundance. And as the internet rolls through industries and rolls through user behavior and rolls through all the things that we're all here in this room quite well aware of, that any business that's built on a scarcity information model is completely upended. The other observation I was going to make is sort of what's new. Because when you think about it, a lot of things are the same, right? People still talk on the phone, they still communicate, they still have vanity, they still have businesses and so forth. And what's really new now is the concept of nowness, literally the right now. And the simplest answer is that if you send an email right now, you expect it to be answered immediately. If you send an instant message, you expect it to be answered immediately. And something has happened, and it's much more fundamental than people appreciate, is that we expect everything right now, whether it's social networks, as we were just talking about, or many other kinds of information. And that's actually a pretty big change for society as a whole. So this nowness notion drives everything, and nowness means life on the internet. And so my basic comment would be that all of us, all of you, all of the people in this building, certainly the Guardian and so forth, should start by approaching the world with an internet-first strategy. Think as though you didn't have your incumbency, you didn't have your current way of doing things, and start from the internet perspective. If you think about a government service, think of it that way. If you think about a social service, think of it that way. If you think about a research project, think that way. My current pet peeve is that public policy people spend an enormous amount of time writing reports that no one reads. Right? When you read the reports, which is rarely done, you discover that they're all assertions. Well, why don't we just ask rather than make the assertions? Since everyone has a mobile phone, just ask them. Just literally ask all the citizens a question. And some people will answer falsely and so forth, but you'll get a much more accurate answer, I suspect, than just estimating the way we have been doing for a while. And what's interesting is that this interconnectedness of the internet that I think we all now experience is also leading to some, and I'll show you some positives and negatives. It also gives us sort of an ersatz sense of connectedness, that somehow we're connected to everyone. And in many cases, a false sense of real relationships and so forth. And all of these are issues that society as a whole is going to have to work out. So the way to express that is, what is being taken from you when the internet stops working? What do you lose? And for each of you, think about, if the internet is down, what do you lose? In my case, I lose this enormous store of information that I enjoy consulting, represented by Google and others, that make me a more interesting, or hopefully at least more entertained person every day. Again, you may have a different answer. And what's really going on is that there are sort of three fundamental trends, which roughly are mobile, cloud, and networking. And the mobile stuff, which everybody here is very familiar with, is the hottest area of computer technology today. There are huge fights. Google, of course, is involved with competitive issues around a whole bunch of stuff in this area. But I would argue to you that mobile is winning, and if a corollary to internet first is mobile first. It's amazing to me that the smartest programmers, the most sophisticated people that I know are building mobile applications first. Used to be PC and Mac desktop apps. They've moved. And why have they done that? Well, partly because of where the audience is. There are infinitely more mobile devices than there are PCs. You all know the numbers. It's a larger market. But there's some other reasons. These mobile devices are highly personal. People use them. They carry them. They're addressable. The mobile devices are, of course, a GPS, a cell phone, a browser, and so forth and so on, and occasionally you'll actually talk about them. So from the standpoint, and you start thinking about it, if you don't really believe that, take a look at the adoption rate, for example, of the iPad. 3 million in a couple months, extraordinary growth. Google announced last week that looks like in the Android operating system, there's about 160,000 devices turned on per day, and that number went up by 60% in 1 month. I'll spare you the math, but if that compounding rate continues, there will be 6 million turned on in one day within 12 months. Obviously, the growth rate at some point tapers off because you run out of humans. Although in many European countries, there's more cell phones than there are humans. So maybe we could end up with 2 or 3 or 4 and have an even bigger market than total humanity, which would be great. Good for revenue, right? But the important point is that these are scale markets of a size that people do not appreciate. The mobile web is current estimates is growing 8 times faster than the equivalent PC web from 10 years ago, which I was heavily involved with. So part of the reason it's all happening faster is it really is happening faster. More people, more voices, more connections, and so forth and so on, because of all the extraordinary work people in this room have done. And what's interesting is that the targeting that's now possible with these mobile devices opens a lot of fundamental questions. So for example, it's obvious that, and I'm sure we'll talk about this some, that the news will become more personal because you'll be reading it on these powerful mobile devices of one kind or another. Big format, small format, what have you. Well, if it's more personal, is it more narrow? Is it more channeled? How does serendipity occur? Do I end up auguring in and finding closer and closer social networks that restrict my field of view rather than broaden my field of view? There's a technology in computing called collaborative filtering, where what we do is if you guys and I are friends, and then we take the sum of your friends' networks who are anonymous to me, we take the sum of all of them, we look at a collaborative, we collaborate, we ask who is looking at what, and then we filter the result, and we can anonymously then sort of select things. But you can imagine that will lead to all sorts of funny kind of biases based on your friends' networks. So what does it mean when your information source is informed by collaborative filtering of your friends who are more like you than not? More education, more racially, so forth and so on. You get the same idea. I don't know. To me, this is a very, very fundamental question. It's interesting that the mobile devices have another impact. There are lots of ways in which this plays out. Conan O'Brien, who's the American comedian, I think did the shortest and most highly efficient way of booking a 30-city tour for some number of hundreds of millions of dollars. He did a single tweet on his mobile device. And the tweet was, "Hey internet, I'm heading to your town," unquote. And that's a cost-effective way of marketing yourself. One sentence. So all of a sudden, because people have these devices, they're targeted, people are following people using all this new technology, you have an emergent new form of business. It's a particularly interesting one, but the point is it applies to everybody. And you think that these things don't matter. You talk to the 2 girls that were stuck in a storm drain, and to be rescued, they were 12 years old. They updated their Facebook status because they figured their friends